بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم إنك تعلم تعليم تذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع لفعل الاستفاء لحثة تمسك بكتاب الله وعلى سنة الله ودعاء الهدى درجة خير مرضاته وقربه والثواب الله تعالى. اللهم ها هنا بين يديك ودعف عليك فتعاملنا بلطفك جودك برحمتك أرحم الراحمين ويصح مرق الله ظاهرها باطنها فإنك على كل شيء قدير وعلى سؤالنا جدير. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون السلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله. Allah Jalla wa Ala praises Ummah of the Rasul alayhi salatu wassalam, and from the moments Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to this Ummah, there's moments of great barakah. And from the moments of great barakah which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed this Ummah within is the great month of Ramadan. The month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the fadail of which are such when He mentions subhanahu wa ta'ala awwaluhu rahmah wa awsatuhu maghfirah wa akhiruhu itq min an-nar, the beginning which is rahmah, the second third which is maghfirah, forgiveness, and the last third which is emancipation from hellfire. So Allah Jalla wa Ala sends the month of Ramadan as a wind in which for us to purify ourselves, and not only to purify ourselves but have a deep understanding of the maqasid and the reasons of this particular month. When we realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions all the fadail and some of the ahkam of the month of Ramadan in Surah Baqara. And when we read Surah Baqara, we realize that the mihwar or the pivotal event within the surah takes its name after the incident of the Baqarah, of when the Yahud were called towards the sacrifice of a heifer. They thereafter continued with their questions, and finally, ultimately, they fulfilled their command to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Within that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions, when He mentions subhanahu wa ta'ala that it is Shahr alladhi unzila fihi al-Qur'an, the month in which the Qur'an was revealed. Thereafter, within all of these rulings, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمْ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And within all of these rulings, all of these incidences, all of these affairs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thereafter says, إِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أَجِبْ دَعْوَةَ دَاعِي. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thereafter mentions that when a person asks me, my slave, say that indeed I am close. When I will indeed respond to the call of the caller. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, within all the rulings that we have of the month of Ramadan and the virtue of the month of Ramadan, and within all the rulings, within the depth of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the dua, that is this ayah of dua, within all the other rulings about Ramadan and within the Surah of Baqarah. And the ulama have mentioned that this is the asl and the essence of Ramadan itself, meaning that it's a moment in which Allah Jalla wa Ala removes all the barriers from a person to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this occurs when a person starts to purify the inner self. And what month can there be than the month of Ramadan, in which this will be a month which is unique from many of our other previous years in which we have performed. That is, what has befallen us and which we are going through is unique, and maybe we may never see these circumstances during the rest of our lives. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kulli makan wa fi kulli zaman, meaning that the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to be practiced and is suitable for each time and each place. Whatever circumstance, scenario, situation the Ummah of the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam passes through, know that there is a makhraj from this. Know that there is an exit, or there is a response, or there is an answer answer to this. And none more so than in the month of Ramadan itself, in this month of Ramadan, which we are passing through. First of all, immediately, we've all, alhamdulillah, I'm sure I've heard so much more about the month of Ramadan, the virtues of the month, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emancipates a person and receive emancipation from hellfire from the barakah of this month. So Ramadan is Allah said لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, Allah says Siyam, as fast as written upon you, so that you may retain piety. Meaning that the month of Ramadan isn't just a month of barakah and taqarrub to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's also a month of taqwa, a month in which we attain the darajah of taqwa. And it's only in this lens that we can understand this month of Ramadan, meaning that it's a month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places us, you could say, almost through a month in which we transform ourselves and we change ourselves and we become from those, inshallah ta'ala, of taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we'll find that within this month, some of the ulama, such as in Mulaqqin, in when he's mentioned in Fath al-Mubin and other texts about the special nature of Ramadan enables this to occur. And although the circumstance and situation may be different, it is the Ramadan from any other. We look at in a moment the fact that most of the masajid are now, alhamdulillah, sealed from us for this month. And the communities that we used to come together and the spirit of brotherhood that we used to feel within the masajid, alhamdulillah, this year it will be different. But however, Allah has nonetheless placed upon us means by which this ajr and this reward can be attained, inshallah ta'ala. Now, so inshallah, we're going to take some of the questions also from online from our listeners, inshallah ta'ala. But prior to taking the questions, the nature of Ramadan is what is a month of transformation and change. It's not just a month of ibadah per se, although it is that, but rather it's a month in which we change our presence to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we get closer to Him. The Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned a famous hadith when he mentioned adman li bayna lihyayhi wa bayna rijlayhi adman lahu jannah. Whoever can guarantee for me two things, that which is between his jawbone and that is between his legs, I can guarantee him Jannah. And this is known as qasrat al-shahwatain, breaking of the two desires or overcoming the two desires. And the overcoming of the two desires is a precursor for a person to overcome every other desire thereafter. This is why the great Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala has a whole section on this basis, meaning that a person overcomes those two desires thereafter to overcome every other single desire within the realm is possible, because these two desires are the base desires which our lower selves call towards and to which our lower selves tend towards. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month has made those two desires prohibited. And the fact that we look back in our history, we realize that this month wasn't just a month of worship as such, but it was many great activities took place within this month. This was the same month, first and foremost, obviously, which was the month of the revelation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was the month also of the battle of Badr. This was the month also in which Fath Makkah took place in the 8th year after Hijrah. This was also the month in which later, in the time of the Tabi'een, those that came after them, the Tariq ibn Ziyad opened the lands of Andalus in the Battle of Barbat. This was also the month in which the Battle of Ain al-Jalut took place. This was also the year in which Umuriyah under the Sultan Mu'tasim Billah took place. And this all took place in which month? In the month of Ramadan. So the first change we need to make to our mindset is that this is a month of barakah, and not only that, but a month of juhud, a month of action, and a month of transformation, and a month of futuhat for the ummah of the Rasul alayhi salatu wassalam. So this month of Ramadan is a month inshallah ta'ala, that we can continue to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that can only occur through the controlling of our two desires. And it's for this reason that some of the ulama have called this hijratu shahwatain, and that's also the name of a famous work by a famous scholar, meaning leaving the two desires, because leaving the two desires will place a person in the realm of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make a person ascend the stations of taqwa to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We mention in this moment, inshallah, some of the what the ulama have mentioned. What it means to taqwa? You always hear from ulama ourselves, alhamdulillah, and from callers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is taqwa? Yani, how does a person get closer to Allah? How do a person attain piety? When we say ittaqullah haythu ma kunt, fear Allah, or have his mindfulness wherever you may be, how does a person raise his station? We'll mention that in a moment. We also mention in terms of a plan of ibadah which a person should have in Ramadan will have to be attained. And when a person starts to attain the daraja of taqwa, a person starts to attain the daraja of taqwa with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will open with his inner heart a basira. His inner heart will open a reality. And Allah will open subhanahu wa ta'ala your inner perception within your heart. And the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam said, ittaqu farasar al-mulk fa innahu yanzuru bi nurillah. We fear the farasar, the inner side of a believer, for indeed he sees with the eye, the perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So tayyib. So first and foremost, talking and mentioning this month of Ramadan, and this moment that we are going through, this khalwa, or this this isolation, you could say. And we have people have a very negative understanding of isolation, but in fact, many of the scholars they used to attain and they used to covet isolation and separation from people, not for any other reason than to think to themselves, that that first of all, could other people be safe from my harm, and not only that, could I be saved from the harm of others? And this is one great scholar. He mentioned about khalwa or about uzla, and there's a slight difference between the two. Uzla is when a person protects himself from the inner incantations of his own lower self, and protects others from the harm of his lower soul. And then there's khalwa, where a person not only protects himself, but rather he protects others from his harm. And one of the scholars they mentioned, just so we can understand that how our mindset should be to what is occurring. When they said كل ما كثرت المعارف كثرت الحقوق وكل ما طالت الصحبة توقدت المراعة. He says that every time a person increases in the people that he knows, the greater does that increase the rights that become binding upon him. And the more that he spends in his time or in the company of others, the greater does it become necessary upon him to keep and to fulfill the needs of those that are around you. So when a person goes into a state of uzla or khalwa, a time of inner retrospection, you could say, within himself, this is taken away from him for a moment, where Allah is not giving him an opportunity to be between himself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's no coincidence. Look to every single prophet without exception. They went and they were for a moment between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam and Ghar Hira, as you all know. Then Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salatu wasalam, when he said the famous dua, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka kuntu min al-zalimin. And Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, 40 layla, 40 nights. And they have to continue with every single prophet without exception that you will find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala subhanahu wa ta'ala will place a person through. So this is actually a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is also, you could say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's gift for his ummah in this particular moment, in that we have not only khalwa, but we have Ramadan within the month and khalwa within the month of Ramadan. So our ibadah has slightly changed in this month, but nonetheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will continue the ajr for a person who continues with the niyat, inshallah ta'ala. There you. So what has changed in the context of what we are in? And what is it that is going to be different for us in the context that we are in at the moment? Yeah? First and foremost, we'll go through some of the rulings of fasting. We've been through them previously, so we'll go through them very quickly, and then mention how there's certain maybe scenarios and situations which are specific to the situation that we find ourselves in. And siyam isn't the outward form of siyam, meaning that Sawm and the outward form of Sawm which Allah has ordered us to perform, and kutiba alaykum siyam, now isn't just the outward form which we perform, meaning that there's an inner essence to siyam, to fasting, in which the ulama have mentioned. From them, Imam al-Ghazali in the Ihya, Asrar al-Siyam, meaning the secrets of Siyam. And for amongst them also the Sahib Hujjatullah al-Baligha, Imam Shah Wali Allah Dahlawi, has also mentioned the secrets of fasting. I mean, the fasting is not an act in and of itself which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires for us to starve and to keep away from certain acts which break the fast, but rather to develop a reality and a consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this very clear. Allah says, La yanal Allah luhumah wa la dima'uha wa lakin yanal minkum at-taqwa. No? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that indeed Allah, when a person sacrifices zabiha, qurbani, does the blood reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does the meat reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates that. What yanaluhu at-taqwa minkum. However, at-taqwa is that which reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So siyam, likewise, Allah is not in need of our hunger, of our thirst, of our abstinence from those that break our fast or invalidate our fast, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is need from us an ibadah or reality of taqwa and of Allah, of us being mindful and of having an awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a person, when he intends to fast, the fasting of keeping away from the food and the drink is the minimum. Meaning that is the as Imam Ghazali calls, hada siyam al-awam. This is the siyam of the generality, the sawm of the general vast majority of people. And then he mentions and continues to, and he mentions the stations thereafter above this. And we've been through many a time before the fadail of siyam and so forth. We don't need to go through this. The only thing that we need to know from this is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says, يَقُلُّ عَمْلِ ibn Adam lahu illa siyam فَإِنَّهُ لِي فَأَنَا جَازِئُ بِهِ. Every action of worship is for them, except for siyam, فَإِنَّهُ لِي, but indeed that is for myself. فَأَنَا جَازِئُ بِهِ, meaning I will reward a person thereof. And scholars have mentioned it means that that siyam is such an ibadah which is solely for Allah's sake, which is ring-fenced, you could almost say, which no other person, no matter what wrong that person has done, has access to the ajr or the reward for a person who is in siyam. So very quickly, inshallah ta'ala, before we move on to some of the other parts and the questions, is the fast of Ramadan. Now, it's conditional upon obviously Islam, intellect, meaning the majaneen or the people who are intellectually challenged. The fast is not binding or compulsory upon them. Now, a person to be legally mature, person to be free from illnesses, free from menstruation and postnatal bleeding, and the resident and not a traveler. If any of those apply, the condition for the fast being compulsory upon him, do not or her, do not apply. So yeah, what are compulsory elements of fasting? It's only two things. And the first and foremost is intent. The person has to intend fasting, and that has to take place after the time of Maghrib by the day before. And if it's the fast of the year which he is fasting, like it will be in some days, then it has to be performed before the time of Duha, or the waqt of Duha. It's mid-morning. You could say if you look at the time of sunrise and add approximately 3 hours to that, 2 hours, that's normally approximately the time of Duha. And thereafter, the person to abstain from the nullifiers of fasting. And what are the nullifiers of fasting? We mentioned previously, very quickly, a person to consume any food, marital relations, or smoking with intent. And we mentioned previously also that there's two categories of when a person invalidates their fast. A person invalidates their fast out of forgetfulness, and a person invalidates their fast with intent, and a person invalidates their fast due to a mistake. Three areas. So forgetfulness, a mistake, and by intent. What do you mean by forgetfulness? For example, I want a ruling for each one of them very quickly. A person forgets that he is fasting, uh, and he thereafter forgets that he is fasting, and he drinks some water or has some food. In this scenario, or even maybe even marital relations, in this scenario, this person fast is intact, and he continues fasting on the condition as soon as he remembers that he is fasting, he stops at that moment from any further action or any further consuming of food or any further drinking of any water or liquid or whatever that breaks the fast. Okay, so that's the first person. The person who does something out of forgetfulness, his fast is intact. Secondly, you have a person who does and invalidates his fast by any of those three things I mentioned previously by a mistake. How does that work? How does that happen? For example, a person he goes to gargle water. He knows he is fasting, and really he shouldn't be gargling or intensely gargling when he is in a fast. He should only be rinsing his mouth, not gargling. However, he continues to do so. No, during if that is the action he performs, this is a mistake on his part. Being a mistake on his part, there's still intent in the person doing that action, but it's a mistake. There's intent, but it's a mistake. He intended to gargle, but mistakenly it went down his throat. In this situation, the fast is invalidated. It is broken. What should he do? He should do imsak for the rest of the day of Ramadan, or he or she, meaning that the person should not eat, nor drink, nor do any of the other actions which invalidate the fast, and should continue till the time of iftar, and thereafter, after the month has completed, he should do qada of that particular day, meaning qada. Tayyib. So this is that a person should do qada. What about a person who with intent eats in the month of Ramadan, or has marital relations in the month of Ramadan during the day, or anything that breaks the fast? What should that person do? That person, first of all, has performed an enormity in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has almost say torn the sacredness of that month, the month which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unzul fil Quran, the month which Allah revealed the revelation and placed a month of barakah, a month of itzaq min an-nar. So this person, what has he done? He's torn the reality of the month. What does this person have to do now? This person has to perform kafara his atonement, and he needs to make up the fast. He needs to perform atonement, and he needs to make up the fast. This is a person who does this with intent. What is atonement? Atonement is that a person, first and foremost, if he can, and has not been advised otherwise by an upright Muslim doctor, that he should fast for 2 consecutive months. 2 consecutive months, not interrupted by days of Eids of the 2 Eids, Eid al-Adha or Eid al-Fitr. If it's a woman who has the monthly period, then she can fast for 2 consecutive months. Where the period occurs, she stops and she restarts again as soon as the period ends for 2 consecutive months. If that is not physically possible, doctor mentioned that it's not possible to lead to great deterioration in health, what does the person thereafter do? Thereafter, the person does this, and he or she feeds 60 people. Now, feeds 60 people both dinner and supper. He feeds 60 people both dinner and supper. Or alternatively, the person could feed 120 people in one meal. Or alternatively, the person could feed one person now for 60 days consecutively, both morning and evening. And the khulasa, you could say this in synopsis, the person feeds 120 meals. Now, the value of the equivalent of that can also be given to the poor. The value, the equivalent of that also can be given to the poor, and this is called kafara. This is called kafara. So, give you a scenario now, if we move on some of the details. The person also, he forgetfully eats in the month of Ramadan. He eats in the month of Ramadan, and then out of his ignorance, he doesn't know that his fast is in fact not invalid. It's still valid. His fast is still valid. What does he do? Out of his ignorance, he now goes and says, well, my fast is now broken, I've eaten something, I might as well go and eat a 3-course meal. He does so. He breaks his, and he out of forgetfulness, he eats something, his fast is still valid, as we've said. He thereafter thinks my fast is now broken. Out of ignorance, he goes now to consume and eat something else. He goes to eat something else. What occurs in this scenario is now ate something with intent. He has intentionally now ate something. First time it was out of forgetfulness, now it's with intent. Where's that intent come from? Due to his ignorance. When it comes to this, what does the sacred law say? The sacred law, out of mercy and for the person, first of all, the person will be sinful for his ignorance. This is ma'aloom min ad-din darura. This is that which has to be known from the faith of necessity. But secondly, the sacred law will do what? It will be merciful towards him in that he will only have to make up qada. He will only have to make up qada, while the normal ability that should be that he should actually have to make up qada and kafara. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mercy for the ummah, and he has only deemed that the person should perform qada of that due to his ignorance. Okay, alhamdulillah. So that very quickly were the rulings of fasting. If a person has an injection, this does not break or invalidate the fast. Any substance which reaches from any of the entry points of for example, the throat, yes, the entry point, of the mouth, the nose, or the rear, and this reaches any of the entry points such as the throat, the stomach, or the intestine, the fast will be invalidated. But these are details, inshallah, so you can go back to your the people of knowledge to ask them if any of these scenarios or situations any occur. What is now, we've done now kafara. What is wasiya, or what is when a person gives fidya for wasiya? What does fidya mean? What is a wasiya for fidya? The fidya is for a person who is terminally ill. What does that mean, terminally ill? Meaning that, or Sheikh al-Zamin, or a person who is extremely old, by which there is his health is constantly deteriorating and he's excused from fasting. The same thing for the person who's terminally ill. There is no hope that they will recuperate from this illness. Also, this person does what? He prays fidya. If the person is ill, not terminally ill, and we have hope that this person will recuperate and regain health, by which he will be able to fast in the future, in this scenario, it's not permissible for this person to give fidya. The same thing if an elderly man is ill. He's not in a state where he's constantly or consistently deteriorating. He may get better, by which he may be able to fast. Now, in that situation, fidya for that person also is not permissible, and it's only for the person who has an illness from which he will not recuperate, or from an elderly man or woman who is consistently deteriorating. For those, it's permissible to give fidya. What is fidya? Fidya is the amount which is equivalent to approximately 1.8 to 2 kilograms of wheat, or its equivalent value. And how should you judge that? Subhanallah, ulama have given different judgments. A person can judge it according to his own locality, which is better, which is ihsan, or a person can also judge it by the place by which it's going to be distributed, and the person can give it the actual wheat itself, or the value of it according to the Hanafi school, the school of law. So now we've looked at kafara, we've looked at qada, we've looked at the things that break the fast, what's intended for the fast. Now finally, we're going to look at something called wasiyah, as I was talking about. Wasiyah is when a person regained their health. They were ill. Because of the illness, they did not fast. They've regained their health. However, now this person who's regained his or her health, now this person, they have to make up the previous fast. They have to make up the previous fast. They did not make it up. And they had the health and the time to make that fast up. What do they do now? They place, or they, at the last moments, they may place within their will. And that's from the third of the will which a person is able to give. At the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, al-thuluth wa thuluthul kathir. A third, and a third is a lot, meaning from what to give from your wealth. So this person, what does he do now? He places it in his will that for every fast that is missed, he will pay for the missed fast. And the pay for the missed fast is the same as we mentioned for the payment, the value of what we mentioned for the fidya. For the fidya, meaning approximately 2 kilograms of wheat, or its approximate value. So bequeathing only becomes compulsory and binding if he bequeathed it from his will. Meaning that if he didn't bequeath it, it's not binding. If the inheritors wish to do that out of their ma'ruf, out of their goodness for the person who's deceased now, whoever it may be, then that they can do that, but that is their prerogative. Meaning that if they do not wish to do that, they don't have to, because it's really binding upon the person himself to give that, not upon the inheritors. This is why in the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, when he says, فَإِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُمْ فَقَالَ مَالِي فَقَدْ أَصْبَحَ لِفُلَانٍ وَقَدْ أَصْبَحَ لِفُلَانٍ. This is why when a person, his soul reaches his throat, he says, my wealth and my wealth. But indeed it's become for him, meaning become for the inheritors. So a person is muqaddam, that he looks after his own hereafter, over and above anybody else's. Tayyib. So this has given us understanding of very quickly of fasting. Now fasting, as I mentioned before, no, the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam said, وَإِذَا كَانَ يَوْمُ صَوْمٍ أَحَدِكُمْ فَلَا يَرْفُثْ وَلَا يَسْخُبْ فَإِنْ صَابَهُ أَحَدٌ أَوْ قَاتَلَهُ فَلْيَقُلْ إِنِّي إِمْرَأٌ صَائِمٌ. The Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, he said that if when any of you are fasting in any day, and so do not use evil speech, nor be cantankerous, and argumentative, and anybody insults you, say, or comes to argue or fight with you, what do you say? فَلْيَقُلْ إِنِّي إِمْرَأٌ صَائِمٌ. Indeed, I am a person that is fasting. Meaning that a person doesn't just continue upon that which is that on the poor manners is upon before fasting, but rather fasting should be transformative to make a person more patient, humble, and more forbearant. You know? And the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam mentioning also the mutimmama of the siyam is that person keeps or protects his gaze, guards his tongue, guards his thoughts also, according to some of the ulama, to keep his sins away, his limbs away from sin. They may not invalidate the fast, but however, a person who does not keep his limbs away from sin, Imam Ghazali, he mentions, like the person almost who builds a home but destroys a city. And the same thing ruling goes for the person who consumes haram thereafter, after he performs the siyam. No? And also, a person should not overeat after the time of iftar has entered, meaning that siyam is such that it purifies a person, brings a reality of closeness to him, to Allah Most High Subhanahu wa Taala. This is why one of the scholars mentioned that siyam has a capacity, and Ramadan has a capacity within it, in that it transforms a person. And the reason why it does this, because scholars have mentioned there's 5 things that take place in Ramadan, which believers find difficult to perform except in the month of Ramadan. And you see those that were performing enormities outside the month of Ramadan, inside the month of Ramadan, they leave those enormities of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what are these 5 actions which the scholars have mentioned? In the Mulaqqin, as I mentioned, he mentions Fath al-Mughith. He mentions these 5 actions. He says, first of all, he says, Tilawat al-Quran ma tadabbur, reading the Quran with some sort of understanding and intent. Understand the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ponder over its meanings, ponder over its message, ponder over the names that are being recited. When you hear Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, or Surah Baqara, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, ponder over the meanings. And if you can learn Arabic, you should do so. Because indeed the Arabic language will take you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you will understand of that which you are reciting. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, "La taqrabu salat antum suqara," don't come towards prayer and you are in intoxication. No? So Allah is prohibiting a person to come towards prayer when a person is in intoxication. No? Until a person understands bima yaqulu, until he understands what he is saying. So when a person is in that state, when a person is in a state where he's understanding the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he thereafter will understand the words of Allah, which will have impact upon his heart, inshallah ta'ala. So thereafter, we'll take the questions in a moment, inshallah. So thereafter he mentions first, he mentions Tilawat al-Quran. Then he mentions the Khala al-Batn, and he mentions thereafter a person should not overeat, be in a state of where his stomach remains empty. And although he does not mention siyam by that word, but that's what is understood from that advice. And also, if a person isn't in siyam outside the month of Ramadan, he or she should not overeat. And the harms of overeating are many. Such that Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, when he mentions, فَإِنَّ كَافِرْ يَعْقُلْ بِالصَّبْرِ عَمْعَاهِ, the kafir eats with 7 stomachs, while the mu'min only eats with 1. And Sayyidina Aisha, when she mentioned anha, when she said that the first bid'ah that started in his ummah that people started to eat to their fill. No. So طيب. So there, second he mentioned خلاء البصر. Thereafter he mentioned dua, يعني في وقت السحر, يعني making dua at the time of يعني of tahajjud, the time of the night, because it's during that time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closest, and it's during that time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يعني is at the first heaven, as we all know. The famous hadith, هَمْ مِنْ مُسْتَغْفِرْ فَيَسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُ, that person seeks my forgiveness that may forgive him. So at that time a person should be tadarru' in that time, raising his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives and raises him, inshaAllah ta'ala. Thereafter he mentioned Qiyamul Layl, standing for the night. And remember he mentioned Qiyamul Layl, as we mentioned before, a person, due to the month of Ramadan, Qiyamul Layl becomes easy because a person awaits and performs the suhoor, and then some moments left for Qiyamul Layl to perform that, the fourth. And thereafter he mentioned Majalis Salihin, keeping the company of the people of the pious and being in their company and being around them and being with them and benefiting from mentioning and sitting with their presence. Some of the ulama have mentioned a person can't be in their presence, then there are the books of their manaqib, and of remembering their alhamdulillah, the beautiful qualities and their lives, on which a person's iman will increase because of that. As the ulama, when they mention تتنزل الرحمات بذكر الصالحين, the rahmah of Allah descends with mentioning the people of Salah. Alhamdulillah. So this, in the month of Ramadan, all these 5 things I've just mentioned now, we perform all of those. We are fasting, we're reading the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are in Qiyam al-Layl, we are in dua at that time of Qiyam al-Layl, and then also alhamdulillah we're in a company of other people, the people of piety, being the people in the masajid, because every single person is a mu'min and he has wilayah al-amma, has general wilayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand and take the benefit of this great month. Now inshallah we're going to take some of the questions that we have, alhamdulillah, about topics that we have. First of all, keeping company of our friends and our families and our neighborhood. We can continue to do that. That community can still be maintained by alhamdulillah, keeping our contact with them. And some of the ikhwan have mentioned where maybe if food cannot be consumed together when in gatherings, then inshallah we can send them sealed containers of certain foods or of dates and others, mashallah, to be from the people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with, because the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam kana ajwad al-nas wa ma kana ajwad ma yakun fi Ramadan. He was the most kareem of people, the most generous of people, and the most generous it was in the month of Ramadan. So, and thereafter also to keep in touch with those who are friends and family within the month of Ramadan, inshaAllah ta'ala. And within this is great ajr to have the rahim of keeping the family members and community and ourselves in contact with each other, inshaAllah ta'ala. Tayyib, inshaAllah. We are now going to take some of the questions and also mention that Tarawih, Salatul Tarawih is a sunnah mu'akkadah in Ramadan. It's an emphasized sunnah. And this year, alhamdulillah, for us to perform Tarawih in the masajid, it's going to be difficult and unadvised due to the harms from the virus and other reasons. So in that scenario, what does the person do? The person performs Salatul Tarawih within their home. One of the questions being asked, Salatul Tarawih cannot be performed virtually, for various reasons within the school, for ittihad al-makan, and the tanaqqul of the imam itself is not a reason enough in the Hanafi madhab, meaning the movement of the imam is not a reason enough. If there's a break outside of a masjid of more than the space in which you could say a car or a horse-drawn carriage in the passage was mentioned could pass through, then the joining of that jama'ah would not be, and is not iqtida is not correct. No. So so a person cannot join Taraweeh prayer performed virtually, whether it's by online means such as this, or even by microphones or loudspeakers, unless there's ittisal or sufuf all the way to our homes, which I doubt is going to occur. Now, now, the question being asked is, reciting the Quran al-Kareem, what other ibadah would you recommend, and in what order of priority? This is the Shahr al-Quran. This is the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan is where a person, even the Imam of Huda, the Imams of guidance, and the teachers would fold their books in the month of Ramadan, meaning that they would totally exert in this month the tilawah of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for the Rasul alayhi salatu was mentioned in the hadith that the Quran should be recited any less than 3 days. The ulama have mentioned in Fadail al-Quran, you can find this from Ajuri and others, is that this only occurs in a scenario where it's outside of a time when a person is expected to increase and intensify his reading of the Quran. So the Quran is first and foremost an ibadah that should be performed in this month. Thereafter, after the person has time with the Quran, there's the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, salutations upon the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's as if a person changes between different types of ibadat, the vast majority of which will be the Quran, and thereafter moving between dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and tahleel and salawat on Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. Another question we have, any easy reading book recommended on personal development, Shaykh, you can give? Any easy reading book on personal development? Imam al-Ghazali, he mentions in the Bidayat al-Hidayah, you could say that is the book of our personal development. There's a khulasa which the Faqir has made just for some notes, and together with a action plan at the end in the spaces of 40 days. If anybody requires it, please text us or email us, inshallah we'll get that to you. Basically, we need to understand that our time in Ramadan should be ordered, meaning that every day, every moment of our time, from the time we awaken to the time we sleep at night, should be ordered. And this should be realistic, which means that don't expect to take 3 hours of sleep. If you can, alhamdulillah, but I doubt that many people can. Imam Ghazali himself mentions that 8 hours is possible within Bidayat al-Hidayah. Meaning what? Meaning that if you don't organize our time, our time will be wasted. And what do we need to say about time? Subhanallah, Imam Shafi'i, he says, "Waqtuka safe. In lam taqta' yaqta'uk." Time is like a sword. If you don't cut with it, it will cut you. And within the booklet that we've given out on the PDF, which people can suggest, can try to appropriate. This is the time, and you've got your time there. You've got your 10 days, so you can take 3 photocopies of this, and thereafter it starts from 4 o'clock and ends at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm not saying that you should fill all of that in. Obviously, you can give us time for rest, time with the family, time with other responsible duties, and then once you have organized it, stick to it, because any time in Ramadan will seep away from your hands unless you start organizing that time, and you're organizing it from now. So the notes we have, and you can refer to that, and inshallah ta'ala. In terms of other texts you can look at in terms of changing, understanding ourselves and souls, alhamdulillah, Bidayat al-Hidayah in this context is what I would recommend at the moment. Person can't fast due to their medical condition. What is the payment they pay instead of completing the fast? What is the intention behind this? As we mentioned just a moment ago, the person who cannot fast due to medical condition, and that has been recommended to him or ordered by his doctor, then in that sense gives fidya. And we mentioned fidya was approximately 1.82 kilograms of wheat for every fast that a person cannot fast. That's on the assumption that this person will not get better. If it's a long-term medical condition, there's no hope of recuperation. If there's a hope of recuperation, the person needs to fast it as and when they get better. Now, how can a person perform i'tiqaf in a lockdown? Now, how can a person perform i'tiqaf in a lockdown? In the Manaqib al-Falah and other texts, it mentions that a person should demarcate a portion or a room or a section of a room in his house where he places himself in that area, and he makes an intention that this is his mu'taqaf, meaning this is his place of i'tiqaf. Within that, he places a prayer place, and also he sleeps in that area. Also, he also, if possible, he should eat in that area. It's more so possible than in a masjid, because it says in masajid you have to leave the area to eat and come back in. In this scenario, a person should demarcate a certain area. His prayer, his eating, and all his ibadat take place within that area. The only time you should leave, as it is in the time within a masjid, you should only leave to perform the necessities that can't be performed that are called to nature. And from that, he should leave that area. Otherwise, he should remain within that area. Now, a pregnant woman, she is at leisure to fast or not to fast, and the general advice would be given that she should not fast for harm that it may cause to the to the child, and that's advice will be generally given. If she feels and a doctor feels that fasting will not harm the child, she's more than welcome to do so, and she can break the fast without any sin if she feels that harm is this harm can be received by the child. No. No. There's other questions here. Sorry. What advice? No. The question we have here, sorry. Now, the question being asked now is that somebody was not aware that they had to fast for the fast that was missed due to menstruation. The best a person can do in this context is to make a timetable and to start making up those fasts. Now, you can make them up gradually. That which is possible. The winter months, as a general advice, are easier to make up than the summer months, as you know, because of the duration of the day. And what a person should do also, is they should place it within their wasiyah, and they should adjust this every year or maybe every 6 months in their wasiyah, that I still have this amount of fasts remaining, and I was unable to make them up. So can approximately value of 2 kilograms of wheat or its equivalent be paid for me on my demise? So in the scenario that Allah Ta'ala and nobody knows the ajal, if a person death reaches them and they haven't completed their fasts as were owed to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, then the inheritors out of the 1/3 of your wealth would be binding upon them to give and to give for every fast that was missed. So in that scenario, a person, inshallah ta'ala, continues to make the fast up, inshallah, and readjust their wasiyah maybe every 6 months or every year to deduct the amount of fast that have been completed and the amount of fast still that have to be paid for. So for example, let's say a person has 100 fasts to make up, they perform 50 in the year, or thereabouts, and then come the next year, got another 50 to pay for. They readjust the will and to say, if I pass away, then these are the 50 that need to be paid for. In that way, inshallah ta'ala, you've taken a step to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what taqarrab alayya يعني مشي قررت له هرولة, whoever comes to me by a span, by walking, I come towards him running. So inshallah ta'ala, we hope Allah's mercy will overcome and inshallah forgive the person, inshallah ta'ala. عفوا منكم. Many of my little approaches are very put screens away in Ramadan. How can we balance this despite the benefit to make the best of the time? And the question being asked is, normally in Ramadan a person will put away their screens, concentrate on the month of Ramadan. How can this be performed now despite the benefits to make the best use of time? You are all, alhamdulillah, intelligent people. You all are aware of generally when the courses will take place or when they will start, when the classes will take place. Allow the screens only for those short durations. And the same thing goes for any programs that are not necessary to watch in Ramadan. You remove those, and only use the screens or the or media that is necessary at those particular points where those various programs come on, and that way you can reduce the usage of any of online devices and any of other electronic devices. So place it within a timetable. That's at the back of the Ramadan notes, which we've given the link to, I think, on our social media. Download that. The last page has the timetable just shown, and place it within the timetable. That way it becomes very clear of when and how you're going to go on to social media or the other means to benefit from those classes, inshallah. No. Okay. Question is, new Ramadan came and not made up for missing days from last Ramadan. What should the person do? If a person has fasting outstanding from the previous Ramadan and they have not yet fasted, they should fast the present Ramadan, obviously now. As soon as this Ramadan ends, they should haste to make up the Ramadan that has passed. Meaning that as soon as the first day of Eid al-Adha finishes, a person should strive to complete the other days of Ramadan as soon as possible. Now, the question we have here: brothers like to complete the Quran via the Taraweeh in the evening. So, in this situation, where the lockdown period, can the brothers adopt the Shafi'i way? Of holding the Quran and leading the Salah at home for the families. Now, the Hanafi Madhab generally is that a person can only read of that which is within the memory. In terms of looking into the Quran and reading from the Quran is only used as a mulaqin, is only used as an aid to your own memorization. So, for example, say you've memorized Surah Baqara, and you have the Quran open next to you, on a raised table, and you're reading Surah Baqara, and intermittently you sort of may get confused, or you may forget a certain section which you generally know. You look into the Quran for talqeen, and to take that. That is what it means when it mentions the Hanafi Madhab, to read the Quran when a person is reading. I mean, he is hafid of that particular section of the Quran, or whatever it may be. So, in the person who has normally prayed the Salah in the masjid or has the khatam of the Quran is a sunnah. Now, and if a person performs, inshallah ta'ala, of that which he knows of the Quran, with the intention, inshallah, if he would have had the opportunity, he would have performed it within the masjid and therefore had the khatam of the Quran. Inshallah, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the ajr of that, inshallah ta'ala. There is a famous principle in Hanafi Madhab which says, Mara'atul khilaf sunnatul ahnaf, which means that us, or the Hanafi scholars or the Hanafi ulama, the Ahnaf, looking and giving due reverence to all the differences according to other schools of law is the practice of the Ahnaf, meaning a person should perform the Salah in such a form that all the madhahib schools of law would consider it to be a complete and established according to their schools of law. So in that scenario, a person adopts all the various conditions according to all the other schools of law. So a person should maintain his own madhab. And you will find that generally a person who tries to read the Quran and leads people in Salah when they're not hafiz of, even though they may be reading from the Quran, find it very, very difficult. Very difficult. And it's one of those conditions which a person may try to fulfill and will find very hard to fulfill. And they will actually probably not complete that. I've yet to know any person who's not a hafiz will try to do that according to the Imam Shafi'i, and they've completed any degree of success. So Allah Ta'ala a'lam. Now, it's better to stay within the madhab, inshallah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the ajr for our niyat and our intentions. This is why when we hear that the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, when he says, "Man hamma bi hasanatin falam ya'malha, qatabaha Allahu indahu hasanun kamila." A person who tries to do a good deed and has intention for a good deed and does not fulfill it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfill with him, inshallah, a complete reward of that. So a person gets ajr as if they've done khatam of the Quran, inshallah ta'ala. There's another question here. If someone has a well-managed health condition but fears that his or her health may worsen during fasting, what would be suggested? In that scenario, the question is, if someone has a well-managed health condition but fears that his or her health may worsen during fasting, what would be suggested? In that scenario, a person should speak to their physician, to their doctor, and based upon their advice of the doctor. Secondly, if a person has a historical any precedent by which in that scenario that same thing occurred in which they went through a period of illness, then the previous scenario, what's occurred previously, can also be taken into consideration. A person can make a judgment based upon that. But first and foremost, a person should speak to their physician. If the health condition will worsen or exacerbate, the person can delay the fast. You have to complete the whole Quran during Taraweeh. Completion of the Quran is a sunnah. No, the completion of the Quran is a sunnah. It's not a farad, definitely not, and it's definitely not a wajib. So a person should pray of the Quran whatever and he knows, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him the ajr. What we have in Dar Arqam, we have the live transmission of the Taraweeh to take place for a very small number of key staff that are at the masjid. I repeat, the key staff at the masjid for which the government has given dispensation for. They will lead the salah. It will be live broadcast, not for the fact that people should be following the salah at home, except for those who listen to the Quran, but to establish a routine within ourselves. This is the period in which, inshallah ta'ala, we should also be establishing Salatul Taraweeh within our homes, inshallah ta'ala. We have a question here. What are the rules regarding breastfeeding women, especially to babies under 1 year old? As we mentioned previously, if the mother fears harm to the child, then she should not fast. She can make up the fast later, and that is a more safer position. Can a non-Muslim physician give advice on a health condition? The tartib is this: a person should seek out a practicing Muslim doctor. In the absence of that, an upright Christian doctor. In the absence of an upright Jewish doctor. In the absence of that, you could say a fasik Muslim doctor. That's a sort of tartib that's been mentioned. But a non-Muslim doctor can give advice in the absence of a Muslim doctor. So when a person's praying Salatul Jama'ah at home, how should they stand? And what should the Jama'ah look like at home? If a person is praying with their family and with maybe their children, the role of the Salah should be as follows. The person who's the Imam should be the person who's the Imam should be at the front. If there is now only one other person following them, they should be slightly to their right, and their toes, the tips of their toes should be behind the heels of the Imam. So something like these are the foot of the imam, let's say, and this is the foot of of the person who is following, the ma'mun who's at the back slightly. So it's only slightly at the back. That's only one imam and one person. If there's now more people who are joining the salah, maybe 2 children, for example, the imam's at the front, and as you have normally in salah, the other 2 would be at the back. And if you have also the women folk joining in the salah, also within the home, in that scenario, the imam is at the front. Thereafter, you have the men and the children together, and thereafter, you have the women. After you leave a blank saf or an empty row, thereafter the women are at the back. Beyond that, inshallah, inshallah ta'ala. No. That's how they should stand in salah. No. Okay, so some more questions here, inshallah. Should we prioritize family time in Ramadan? Family time in Ramadan should take the form of nasiha and lessons, inshallah ta'ala, and azkar. You'll find that, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within the purity of the hearts of our children that when a person starts to do that dhikr within the home, it becomes something which becomes a point of subhanallah, like a focal point for the whole family, and they all take part, alhamdulillah ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said about Sayyidina Bilal, when he said about him why he should give the adhan, he said, Anta asawtan ya Bilal, you are more beautiful of sound, O Bilal. Scholars have different opinions, but you are more beautiful of sound, meaning that a person maybe who has a melodious sound for the azkar, which causes hearts to tend towards. This is something, inshallah ta'ala, which maybe that child or that member of the family should lead the dhikr within the family. So family time takes the role of being shaped within a form of ibadah, inshallah ta'ala. If one has previous missed prayers, it is better to pray Taraweeh or to make up missed prayers. The person should do both, meaning that they should pray the Taraweeh, but within the Taraweeh, they should also set aside some time in which to pray the salah which has been missed, and the qada prayer. So if a person makes a timetable, it's very possible for that to be performed. Remember, Taraweeh, like we said, and it's called Taraweeh from the word Yurawih. Yurawih means that to have a rest. That's why it's called Taraweeh. And the word Taraweeh means that a person prays, and the initial understanding of Salat Taraweeh is that it's not a race to complete. Rather, it's a worship that you do to feel Allah's rahmah and mercy towards a person and towards us. Yurawih, Tarawih, to take rest. And what used to occur after every four rakats, they used to rest. And they used to take a rest, by which another 4 rakats could be prayed within that rest period. And then another 4 is prayed, and another rest would take place. Then another 4, another rest would take place. And in that way, a person would finish their prayer at the end, and it wouldn't be a race, but it would be a person where the person would yajlub, and it would bring and pull the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala closer to his or her heart, inshallah ta'ala. So within those times of rest, a person can pray their Salat al-Qada within that period. And some of the ulama have mentioned that it can reduce it to the minimum that is necessary for the Qada. Meaning that a person doesn't leave out any wajibat, but it's possible for them to miss out some of the sunan in that make-up prayer. We have a question here. If I pray alone and wife prays alone, will I be using the ajr of salah with jama'ah? A person can pray with their own family behind them with no karaha, especially since now the door to Salat al-Jama'ah in the masajid has been closed. So there is and a discussion the scholars have had in the Hanafi school about should a person pray with their family at home, or should he go in congregation, or should he go to the masjid, pray to the congregation there? And the preference was to the congregation in the masjid. Now that door has been closed, Allah has opened up another door for us by which a person can pray congregation with their family at home, and inshallah they will get the ajr of jama'ah with that, inshallah ta'ala. Limited the number of surahs we know when praying Tarawih at home, 20. What can we adopt as a valid solution? If you're limited to the number of surahs we know when praying Tarawih at home, maybe 20, what can we adopt as a valid solution? The last 10 surahs, for example, Surah Fil to Surah Nas, if a person prays them twice, inshallah the person has completed this. And also generally, if you look and try to see some of the du'as that you know, or the end of Surah Baqara, for example, لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم إلى آخر السورة. If you look at these ayat, yes, you'll find that many of them are long ayat, long verses. A long verse can be recited, or 3 short verses can be recited in every rak'ah, which means that it's possible for a person, look at some of the du'as that we know also, you'll find that many of these are verses of the Quran. So therefore those can also be recited within our Salat al-Tarawih, inshallah wa ta'ala. And we are, alhamdulillah, all in a khalwa, alhamdulillah, which means there's no better time to learn part of the Quran than now. Maybe part of the Quran we have learned and maybe forgotten. It's a good time now, inshallah ta'ala, to memorize and to re-memorize our Quran, inshallah, inshallah ta'ala. And it has been the month of the Quran, even more so reason. And now you have an added impetus, alhamdulillah, to lead to salah within the home, inshallah, inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah. So Allah Azza wa Jal enable us to benefit from this month and sit for a moment of dhikr, for 10, at least for 10 minutes, between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which you are concentrating upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, almost in muhasabah or muraqabah, where you're looking at the day of how it's proceeded, or maybe in your life, and then where you have muraqabah, you are bringing the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just some months ago, alhamdulillah, we performed we offered the course of breaking out from burden, and alhamdulillah, Brother Shawkat, who delivered the workshop to do with aspects of CBT and therapy, and we looked at ways in which there has been a forging, you could say, of behavioral therapy, and also of the Islamic model by such as practitioners of Malik al-Badri and Dr. Kari Laham and others. And subhanallah, what you will find that our tradition of tazkiyah and tarbiyah has all of these elements. And himself, Dr. Malik Badri, he mentions that he has met many ulama of tazkiyah and tasawwuf which have had no exposure to how to treat people with spiritual stroke mental illnesses. However, the methods have proved to be successful far above and beyond anything that the West could itself offer. And there's many aspects, but one aspect which he mentioned, and which I will mention here, inshallah ta'ala, and this is to be taken with advice from others, not to be taken by itself. If a person has a condition, they need to obviously seek out the help necessary. Kullu da'in dawa, for every illness there is a cure, as Rasulullah mentioned. And one of the aspects we looked at was mantras. And mantras are what? Mantras are phrases which a person repeats to himself until they permeate into their hearts. and they believe them to be true. That's what the Western model called it. Yeah? So we call it dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They call them mantras and breathing exercises. We call them the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, Zayn al-Anfus, which is a method of dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You take the name in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you take out the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through your heart. No? When a person says, Hu Allah, for example. Yes? So dhikr within this period, especially since we are going to be very much within the confines of our homes, and this being within the confines of our homes, and it may lead to some instability within people's minds. And these moments in which a person has the dhikr of Allah, which includes also breathing the name of Allah subhanahu within oneself, inshallah, this will be a means, inshallah ta'ala, of not only purifying themselves, not getting closer to Allah subhanahu, also relieving themselves of any stress, which they which they may have. Now, there was one of the scholars of the Habib bin Tarim. He used to have a mihrab. The name doesn't come to me at the moment. And when he used to go down the stairs into his mihrab, it was a very small space, maybe the space of, let's say, maybe looking at maybe 3 or 4 meters, or maybe the height was about maybe 2 meters, or maybe slightly higher. And this was the place where he spent his time in khalwa. Meaning, this is the space where he sat in meditation and in dhikr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that although we are in khalwa, and if we make our intentions for this, inshallah, to be within our homes, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open upon us great goodness, inshallah, and rectify our state with ourselves before this test upon us has been lifted. And a person should have the intention that he is in khalwa, and we hear the words of the Rasul alayhi salatu when he says, "Man yurabitu fi sabilillah khayrun min dunya wa ma fiha." And the hadith mentions the person yurabit, the person who is at the border lands of Islam and defending it. And the word ribat also means a person who is in self-seclusion for that purpose. So if a person intends, inshallah, in these moments that we are, that this is a khalwa, this is a time that he's going to spend with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah ta'ala, will not accept gain any benefit from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, great virtue from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah Jalla wa Ala enable us to benefit from these moments and in preparation of Ramadan. And the key to today and for Ramadan, whether it's on Wednesday evening, first Taraweeh, or on Thursday evening or Friday evening, whenever it may be, is that we have a timetable in place. That timetable will determine how much barakah we derive from Ramadan. And that timetable, as I mentioned, should be realistic, meaning that it should give enough time for your rest, enough time for any responsibilities towards the family and so forth. And with that timetable, inshallah ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us and place barakah within our time, inshallah ta'ala. No? And as we progress towards the days of Ramadan, we've been having short reminders as is on the timetable. So we ask you to return back to the timetable to see of how we can continue that barakah of the month of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. Wa'afan minkum. If any further questions, inshallah ta'ala? No. طيب إن شاء الله. بارك الله فيكم. جزاكم الله خير. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. بارك الله فيكم يا إخوان. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.